Madam Director General, what a pleasure to see you once again in Davos.
Lovely to see you, Tian. Very nice.
Tariff seems to be a favorite tool for some politicians these days. So what is your take as the Director General of World Trade Organization?
Well, let's just say that it's been a challenging few years for world trade. We've seen protectionism on the rise, various measures being used by different countries as they feel that they want to defend more their national interests. But in spite of all that, I do have something I want to say, and that is that world trade has been remarkably resilient. We've seen world trade now at $30.4 trillion, which is higher than the pre-pandemic peak. And that is remarkable. Even more so, our latest numbers show that 80% of world trade is taking place on WTO terms. So in spite of a bit of turbulence that we see, trade is showing some resilience. That's the first point I want to make. I think the second point I want to make is that we are, in spite of this resilience, seeing some fragmentation. And of course, you know, we need to be very careful that trade policy uncertainty and fragmentation does not impact the world in an adverse way. So let's keep steady, let's keep watch, and let's keep some hope that world trade will continue to exhibit that resilience.
It seems to be the side effect, quote unquote, that on the one hand, some politicians are trying to use a tariff as a negotiation tool. On the other hand, you see more people come up to you and say, Madam Director General, we support free trade. That's an interesting byproduct, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think the fact is that most members of the WTO recognize that free trade, a free, open, and stable multilateral and predictable multilateral trading system has helped the world tremendously to improve living standards. It's lifted more than 1.5 billion people out of poverty. And even when you exclude China, we still see it's had a big impact. So with that positive impact, I think there is a desire to do the most possible to keep multilateral trading system open, free, and predictable.
And this year, celebrating 30th anniversary of the WTO. Meanwhile, China joined WTO and really enjoyed it all along the journey. And I see more emerging economies and developing countries joining WTO with your leadership, Madam. So how do you see WTO in the new era, in a way, especially when you are re-elected as the Director General?
Well, thank you very much. I think that WTO has delivered quite a lot. The multilateral trading system has, but we still have some ways to go. I think WTO needs to reform in order to make sure its rules and its procedures are fit for 21st century purposes, and we have launched that reform. We need to do more. So that's the first thing. So in the new era that we will enter into in August, I think we need to focus very clearly on keeping the multilateral trading system open, free, fair, and predictable. Members that have complaints or difficulties about other members' measures, we hope that they will use WTO processes and procedures to try to lay out those complaints. As you know, we have procedures where if you have a complaint, to launch an investigation, to show what harm there has been, you launch consultations, and I think we provide the platform. And I'm happy to say many of our members are using that. So I hope looking forward, we will continue. My main priority is to make sure that we keep the WTO as a platform where members can speak to each other and try to resolve trade issues. Because as I mentioned earlier, if we have a trade war, trade friction, it's going to be detrimental to global growth. So a priority is to try to keep open trade stable and predictable. Another priority, as I said, is to reform our systems so we can be fit for the 21st century. I think a third is to deliver results. We have several important negotiations ongoing at the WTO. We have one on sustainability of fisheries resources in our oceans that we need to complete. We have the important agriculture negotiations that we have to make a breakthrough And I hope we'll do that at our next ministerial MC14 in 2026. We also have exciting new opportunities in trade. So it's not just old agreements, but we have new instruments like the investment facilitation for development instrument, which will help developing countries to clear away all the bureaucracy that the private sector prevents them from investing. That's exciting if we can have that. And we have digital trade. Digital services trade is growing fast, and digitally delivered services trade is growing at 8% per year, compared to goods trade at about 5.8%. So this is an opportunity for members, especially for small and medium enterprises. And finally, green trade. Green trade is almost $2 trillion, and they're
ever growing.
And growing. So I think the future is I don't want us to be doom and gloom because we are seeing fragmentation in the trading system. No, I want us to focus on how do we seize the opportunities that are there and make that work for our members.
Yeah, follow up on the green trade, if I could, a little bit. We see, for example, on electronic vehicles, China, its business partners like the United States and the EU, they had discussions through the WTO mechanisms. Of course, eventually now they're in bilateral negotiation, for example, China and the EU on electronic vehicles. But they would say, oh, yes, we went through this procedure, but exactly how much it would really help us. What do you say?
I think it will help enormously. The WTO procedures have several steps. Yes. And if one step doesn't work, you go to the next. If you're negotiating to try and get to an agreement outside of the more legal dispute settlement system, you have quite some time to exchange and try to come to some conclusion that is beneficial or acceptable to both sides. I think it's very good. We shouldn't have members always rushing to take cases to the dispute panel. They should try arbitration, mediation, dialogue, all the procedures that are there in the dispute to try and get an agreement, which is what the EU and and China are trying at the moment. If that fails, then you can go to the panel system to try to see, okay, how do we resolve that? So we're very hopeful. It's been going on for several weeks that China and the EU can come to some agreement that will be satisfactory to both sides on the issue of EVs and batteries and all the things linked to the green energy revolution. So let's see. We're hopeful.
I remember very clearly joining you on the panel at the opening of the public forum. You specifically touch on industrial policies related to green industry, and you said there has to be space in which the WTO rules needs to be updated.
Yes.
To fit into that. What about it going now?
Well, I still say that we have an agreement called the agreement on subsidies and countervailing measures, ACM agreement, and which governs the subsidies and that members can utilize in terms of their production and manufacturing and trading systems. And I think that needs to be updated because it was made, 3 decades ago, even before China joined the WTO, more than 3 decades ago, actually. And I think we need to bring that and update it and make it fit for 21st century because we have new kinds of subsidies now we need to look at. We need to make sure that members are doing things according to the rules and not trying to get around the rules. We need greater transparency. One of the things I discussed in China also at my last visit was working with China to make sure that China's transparency of its measures at the WTO is enhanced and increased, that we have more work together on reporting on subsidies that are used, because I think this helps to build trust. But all that being done, I think we still need to update this agreement so that the issue you mentioned about policy space, which kinds of subsidies should be used now, for what type of purposes, those are issues that we need to discuss. National security exceptions, we also need to discuss that and update.
Some people talk about the art of the deal. But I know in business and trade, there's a lot of skills needs to be used in the negotiation. So in that sense, what is the way for you to talk to some of the leading economies, especially the politicians coming from those economies?
Well, that's a very good question, because I've actually been talking to some of the leaders in our key countries and our key member among our key members, including in China.
United States? Not yet.
Not yet, because there's a new administration in place, although we have sent as what messages we can on, we're ready and willing to work constructively with the administration, but we still have to wait until those who are going to be working on trade issues are confirmed. But outside of that, the conversation we're having with our leaders is that, look, we should chill. Let us not rush to take action and counter action. We need to take a deep breath, step back, and try to use deliberate processes to pursue any actions we see that we think are not in the interests of our membership or of our country. So chill, don't be too hasty, let's be deliberate. Let's use the processes that are already in place to do the work that we have. And I'm happy to say we just talked about China and EU using those processes.
Yes.
And so I think that's the way to go. And I think our members are listening.
Yeah.
I'm very grateful for that. I hope we can continue to persuade them to listen, because any other approach of tit for tat will not work. So let's keep the steady. Let's keep everyone deliberate. Let's chill.
All right. I love that.
I don't know what the word chill is in Chinese, but let's chill.
And let's chill. I will try to translate that, give you the best version. I guess that will be my New Year resolution for the year of the snake.
Yeah, let's chill.
Thank you so much.
Wish you personally and wish China a very happy and wonderful year of the snake. It's a year for wisdom, a year for flexibility, and I hope that we'll exhibit wisdom and flexibility in pursuing our trade policy this year.
Thank you so much, Madam Director General.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.